You know, it's a bit ironic that today we're now finally having a hearing on protecting our nation's pipeline infrastructure, because my Democrat colleagues have spent over a year now conducting an all-out assault on reliable and affordable fossil fuels and the infrastructure needed to transport these vital resources to market. But this hypocrisy is nothing new. Let me take you back to May of 2021. The Colonial Pipeline, which supplies nearly half the fuel consumed on the East Coast. As we all remember, it suffered a major cyber attack. And Secretary Granholm, from the White House podium, admitted that when it comes to moving America's fuel, she said, and I quote, "pipe is the best way to go." Mr. Turk, do you agree with Secretary Granholm? Is pipe the best way to go?
So thank you, Congressman, for the question. As I referenced earlier—
No, it's a yes or no answer, Mr. Turk. Do you agree with Secretary Granholm? Don't need an elaboration. It's a yes or no.
So yes, there are
okay, thank you.
Safety—
All right, then. Well, I don't know about you, Mr. Deputy Secretary, but I do agree that pipe is the best way to go. With the litany of anti-pipeline actions from this administration, it makes you wonder who's really responsible for American energy security, because President Biden sure isn't listening to his energy secretary or to people like you, Mr. Turk, that think pipe is also the best way to go. I mean, we all know about the administration's actions against the Keystone XL Pipeline and then Enbridge 5 line, which provides energy to Michigan and my home state of Ohio, considering shutting that down. But here's another one. Have any of you heard of the Penn East Pipeline? $1 billion pipeline to carry reliable, affordable natural gas from Appalachia to New Jersey. Our full committee chairman's home state, by the way. Last fall, it was canceled due to massive opposition from environmentalists and radical left-wing state politicians. I wonder, do my Democrat colleagues really want to secure our pipelines? Or do they want to just side with the radical environmentalists and shut down the pipelines in favor of weather-dependent renewable energy sources? It seems to me that many of our Democratic friends can't seem to make up their minds. So, Mr. Turk, you were previously the Deputy Director of the International Energy Agency. A recent report was published by that agency that stated we need to move an energy economy, quote, we need to move to an energy economy, and I quote, dominated by renewables like solar and wind instead of fossil fuels. Do you agree with that we should move to an energy economy dominated by renewables like solar and wind instead of fossil fuels?
So I think we need to do two things simultaneously. Given the climate imperative, and we're already seeing the risks and damages to climate across our country.
I don't want to debate climate change, Mr. Turk. I ask you a simple question. Do you agree with that agency's statement that we should move to an energy economy dominated by renewables like wind and solar?
So because of these climate impacts, we need to move very aggressively in a diverse way with a variety of clean energy resources.
So you agree with Secretary Granholm that we should protect what we have and diversify, right?
Well, that's the second part of the answer I was going to say. As we move to this diverse, robust, clean energy future, we need to make sure existing energy is reliable, secure.
But how do we make sure that the energy is reliable and secure when the efforts to shut down the very pipelines that take that energy to market are being throttled? How do we do that? How do you account for the administration's protection of where we are today? Because that's not happening.
So just to be clear, the challenges we're seeing across the country on affordability right now, whether it's on the oil side or the natural gas side, are largely stemming from the pandemic and supply and demand being out of whack.
I mean, these pipelines, some of these pipelines have been running since 1953. The consideration to close down the Enbridge 5, since 1953 it's been running. The XL pipeline has been in construction for years, had nothing to do with the pandemic.
But that's not the issue that's causing the current affordability challenges we're seeing across the country. Right now, we do not have enough supply matching up with the demand as our economy is roaring back, and the U.S. economy is doing quite well right now. And we don't have enough supply on the oil side to match up to that. That's why we're doing the kinds of things we're doing with the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to try to bridge that time period as our domestic producers get more and more product on the market.
Mr. Chairman, we should be doing everything we can to increase production and use of our own resources here in America, and that's not what this administration is doing. That's what would bring down the price of gas at the pumps and lower the cost of groceries on the shelves. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.